Greetings, friends. Welcome back to Biblical Hebrew Grammar. We're walking through this book and the 12 principles therein. We're going to talk about the components of the biblical text. The last lesson, we actually discussed the Hebrew alphabet or the alphabet and how we got the writings of it. This time we're going to talk about some of the other unique things that are within it, such as the pointing system. The pointing system. Modern Hebrew, as we walk around in Israel, and I took this picture last summer, it doesn't have the dots that you often see whenever you look inside of your BHS or your Biblical Hebrew Bible. Modern Hebrew just uses the consonants, to which you might say, how then do they know what vowels to put on the sounding of the word? Well, naturally you will end up sticking vowel sounds with consonants if you were to try to read just a word made of consonants. In fact, there's many different variations of letters or documents that you can find online that do this very thing. They give demo of words without vowels, and so you can actually read it in English, and it's the strangest thing ever if you've ever tried to do it, because your brain naturally fills in the vowel type of sounds. So Biblical Hebrew started out without these vowel points. They didn't need it. It was an unpointed language. It was just a consonantal language in the truest sense. And so if we were to strip all of the pointing away, you have several different types of biblical language here. And let's look at this. You have the unpointed text. So this is Genesis 1:1, right? Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et ha'eretz. I literally just read that by looking at the top line without any of the vowel points, because I was actually taught to read Biblical Hebrew without vowel points, which is really strange and unique, because oftentimes I say things in a slightly different way than other friends. But modern Hebrew doesn't use vowel points. They can read the language without them. So you might run into a text that doesn't have any vowel points, such as the top line. You might run into a text, and by the way, some of the Dead Sea Scrolls are that very same text at the top where there is no vowel points. You might run into some texts that have accent marks, and you see these little curves and elbow looking. They look more like things that belong in Tetris. Nevertheless, they tell you how to enunciate a word and how to break down the accent of each word. Then you see it with the vowel points right there on the third line down. And these vowels are what we're going to talk about in this lesson. Lastly, we see the complete text, which is what you would find in the BHS or a Biblical Hebrew Bible as you read it. And it gets extremely overwhelming, and that's why I tend to prefer Biblical Hebrew that does not have any of the points on it. Now, why is it then that we need the points? Well, the truth of the matter is that we need the points in order to help us pronounce the word, but there is actually a great debate. How do we pronounce these words, even the ones with vowel points on the word? And the reason is because there is a family tree of Hebrew pronunciation types that are out there. Now, there's two main pronunciation types that we encounter here in the United States. One is Sephardic and the other is Ashkenazic. But I want to show you all the different types that are out there right now, and this is just a very basic version of it, and we'll talk about those that follow later. If you go to Israel, there are still Samaritans in Israel. They still live and worship at Mount Gerizim, or Mount Gerizim, as they would say. And their Hebrew is slightly different than the majority of modern day Hebrew speakers. And so they enunciate things slightly differently. Then the next type of family tree that we have is the Temani, which has resulted in a very common form of Hebrew called Mizrahi Hebrew. Mizrahi Hebrew, or some people might even call it Yemeni Hebrew, or Babylonian Hebrew, or Iraqi Hebrew. It has more of an Arabic type of sound, and I tend to think that this is probably how it originally sounded, but that's for linguists, not me as a Hebrew prof, to determine what was the original sound of Hebrew. The third type of Hebrew pronunciation system that we have, as I said earlier, is called Sephardic or Sephardi. The Sephardim type of pronunciation comes from the Iberian Peninsula. That would be Portugal and Spain. And so there's a lot of really interesting enunciations that they have there that are very different than other parts of the world. Last, and the most common type of Hebrew that you will hear in the United States is what we call Ashkenazic Hebrew. This is Eastern European Hebrew. It's been influenced by German, Russian, Polish, Lithuanian, some Italian, etc. And so they have a lot of that Eastern flair of pronunciation, and that's where we end up getting the language that is called Yiddish, though Yiddish in and of itself is not uniform. It depends upon what country the ancestors are from. But that's the most common prevalent type of pronunciation system that you will find in the United States. Now, what's interesting, whenever I go to Israel and I meet with my friends that are linguists and Hebrew teachers, they will point out that modern Hebrew is mostly a conglomeration of Sephardim and Ashkenazic Hebrew, but there is also a lot of Temani or Samaritan influence that comes into the pattern, into the way, into the rhythm of how the language is spoken. Because Hebrew is a very rhythmic language, and that's brought over very much from the Temani line, where they are very rhythmic in how they sing, how they do different things in that manner. Now, what is really interesting is that whenever the Zionists were forming modern Hebrew, they actually didn't want to utilize the Ashkenazic system of pronunciation, but they found that the majority of the people immigrating to Israel during the Zionist period could not enunciate vowels as the Sephardim or as the Temanis could. And so they actually kept different vowels and different consonantal sounds from back and forth. So the Ashkenazic vowels are somewhat gone. They kind of have pushed them more toward the Sephardim pronunciation of vowel points, whereas the consonantal sounds ended up staying more with the Ashkenazic pronunciation. So whenever I said earlier that I read Hebrew often without vowel points, and I pronounce things slightly differently than many of my friends, it's because I've developed and kind of picked up this mix, this hodgepodge of modern Hebrew reading method into my biblical Hebrew. If this interests you, there's actually some really cool YouTube videos of the different forms of Hebrew being pronounced and them trying to speak with one another. And so I would encourage you to look those up and listen and see if you can understand all the different types that are out there. This is just one of the videos that I was able to find and listen through. So who developed the vowel points? Here in the background, you can see a unpointed and a pointed text. The Masoretes, who ended up transcribing and keeping the Bible alive and protecting it by copying it and writing it, okay, they were the scribes. They're the ones that put these different points in because people were forgetting how to pronounce Hebrew. And the reason they were forgetting how to pronounce Hebrew is because of the invasion of the Assyrians and the Babylonians and the expulsion to Persia and Babylon and then later the Greeks and the Romans. And so they were losing what was the original pronunciation. Now, again, as I noted just a minute ago, there is debate in regards to how do we pronounce these different vowel points. Nevertheless, the vowel points were created by our friends, the Masoretic scribes. Within these vowel points, there are three primary vowels that you will run into: the A, the I, and the U. In English, we have A, E, I, O, U, or U, right? What's interesting is that linguists have said that A and O are very similar, and they're made in the same part of your mouth, okay? I and E are made in the same part of your mouth, right? And so we end up having them kind of joined together, and Hebrew has three main vowel points, and that's A, I, and U. These are the I can equal E, U can equal O, A can equal O at times, and so it's a really unique thing, and these are the points that you would see right here. So you have the Cholam, the Shva, you have the Sigol, the Sere, the Patak, the Kametz, the Sharuch, the Kavutz. You have the Shataf Shigol, you have the Shirik, you have the Shataf Patach, you also have the Shataf Kamatz. These different points will fall under the three different letters that we have of the A, the I, and the U type of sound. And so let's skip over and not really worry about the names of the vowels, but let's jump straight into how do they pronounce and how do they sound and what would it look like in a word. So the first one, let's talk about the A-class vowels. A-class vowels. And you see there you have two different types of A-class vowels. You have the long A and the short A. And they both are ah or aha. Long, right? So you have aha. You have the short at the beginning and the long at the end. And so we see this at Shavat. Shavat. Or also we see this in the word bar. Right? Bar is son. Simon bar Jonah. Simon, who's the son of Jonah. And so we see the ah type of sound coming in that way. Second vowel class that we have is the E. There's three different types of E type of sounds, okay? So let's jump into the E-class vowels. E-class vowels, you have long and you have short E-class vowels, okay? Long ones would be A, as in acorn, okay? Levi, Levi is actually how it would be in Hebrew. Levi, Bethlehem, Bethlehem, okay? But then you have the short E, such as an egg, okay? Which we have Negev, Beit, we have Lechem. These are all words that have the shorter A right there. Bethlehem, Lechem. Okay, so we have long and short E's. You can work it out. You can figure it out. There's many different ways people pronounce these, and I'm sure that as you're reading these in English, you're going, in English, that's not how we say it. In Hebrew, that's how they say it. It's okay. Work on it. Figure it out. Find which sounding system you want to use. You have the I-class vowels. So you have the A, the E, and now the I-class vowels. I-class vowels would be, for instance, as in the long one, would be E, again, so I and E are very synonymous. They're said in sort of the same way of the mouth, okay? So we have sini, okay? Sini, or Dina, so Dina, or Sinai, or Sinai, okay? So we have C, okay? So we're making it long. I'm elongating it and saying it kind of weird at first so that you can see how I'm putting it, okay? Sinai. Okay, Sinai is how we would say it in English. The shorter I with the one dot down below, okay, is going to be more of a rapid use of it. So, for instance, we have Rebecca. Rebecca is very short. Rebecca, my wife's name. Okay. We also have Sadiq or Yitzhak, for instance. Yitzhak. It's a very Yitzhak, and how we pronounce it. A, E, I, how about some O? O-class vowels are going to have the dot above, okay? The dot above, and these are O as in oats. They're often the O type of sound. And so here's some words that you can try sounding out loud on the top right-hand corner, right? We have Pharaoh, okay? We have Boaz. And so with the O-class vowels, you actually have to read up, okay? So Boaz, okay, because you're reading the point above it instead of a point below it. You have Yosef. Again, you read up, Yosef. You have Moav. Or you have Mordecai, okay? So we have that Mordecai, okay? So O-class vowels are there, and they just kind of come naturally as you read these things. Don't get hung up on the pronunciations, because as you read it a lot and you listen to other people read Hebrew text, your ear will get trained and you will learn to pronounce them as well. U-class vowels, you have long and short of these. You have U as in noon, or boo, right? Boo. Boo is to come in or enter, okay? But we see this in several different names. We have Purim, the high holy day that was developed in the book of Esther in Persia, Purim. We also have Shaul, or Saul, Shaul, and that's there in that name. We have a shorter U type of sound, and this one's really common, and it's the three dots leaning underneath of a letter. And we see this right there under Hanukkah. And we don't say Hanukkah, we say Hanukkah. I just added the emphasis the first time so you can see where it falls on this letter there. These are the components of the biblical text, and they're unique. Don't get hung up on these vowel points if you struggle with them. Just keep trying. Eventually you'll get it, and listen to other people say it. There's all different ways to do it, and it's a great fun thing of who's right at pronouncing these different points. Well, I hope you enjoyed this lesson. I will see you in the next one very soon.